a lot of guys struggle with what you've gone through, right? Alcoholism and just addiction in general. Say just in the hockey bubble. How much of this is stemming from the culture of hockey, especially in the past when it was heavily self-medicating with alcohol, right? And I think things have transitioned. There's more plant-based medicine, cannabis, and other alternatives now. Talk to that versus just like being a micro of the macro problem, because I think the culture of hockey has probably been the root cause of a lot of guys' issues to some degree. You want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not a guy that ever throws anybody under the bus, but if you think that I'm a lone wolf in this,
no, that's my point.
There's fucking legions of us. I mean, and I'm not saying like misery likes company. I don't. I wish no one had this, and I wish I was the only one to take the hit for everybody and say, guys, trust me. Yep. But I mean, like this is a very, very. I don't want to say. I hate to say a problem because I look at the hope end of it. But you're right, Riley. There's a culture that came with this league that's gone back. Some 100 years.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like the culture of the game was, go out, play hard, work hard, and you got a night out in the team, go out and drink beers with your buddies.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I was raised in that culture.
Sure.
Small town Ottawa, cold winters. My dad, be a good teammate, do the right things for your teammates and, have a beer after the game with them. But don't ever do drugs, they'll kill you. Yeah. And I lived by those standards.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Totally, I did. And so, I guess the culture of the sport caught up. I think having one or two beers after a game became a lot easier to have 3 or 4.
Sure.
And, alcoholism is a progressive disease. It gets worse and worse and worse. But I've seen many, many guys in this league afflicted by addiction, whether it be drugs, more certainly alcohol, far more prevalent because of the culture of the sport that we live in. Mm-hmm. That has changed.
Yep.
That's changed a lot. Now, before where somebody used to say, there's a rumbling. No one would go whispering, but if you heard a rumbling that there was a guy doing cocaine in the 90s, that was a really big deal.
Yeah.
Where now that kind of adage may have changed a little bit, where the alcohol is now the demon because it does far more worse for an athlete long term because it stays in your body.
Yeah.
Where someone may turn their head to saying like to me, cocaine is like, I think Scarface and Tony Montana. I'm like, that's what I think, and alcohol wasn't so much, but it's on every street corner. It does just as much damage. So I think a lot of guys in the league now have, I think through society have been deemed that alcohol is really bad for athletes now. The problem I have with that is that, and I've been around long enough to know, guys are going to do something. They need a release of some kind. And I think that will be and forever will be an issue in professional sports in general, is the high the players chase away from the game. They're getting that high in the game. What are they doing away from it?
Yeah.
And I wish there was a great answer for that, or I wish I had that answer, but I just know the way young people are when you give them money in their bank accounts, time on their hands.
Sure.
And situations that they're not accustomed to handling through sheer wisdom.
Yep.
I know that now because I'm 50. I have all these years of wisdom, and I've seen all these things, and I see young guys come up, and I watch them, and I know. I went and talked to the Washington Capitals this summer. They had me come in and speak to their 20-year-olds, 18 to 20-year-olds, their development camps. Some guys just drafted 2 nights earlier, and I shared with them for about 40 minutes. I was exactly you guys. Mm-hmm. No different. Heck, my first year in the league, I hardly drank in the NHL. Hardly drank because I was so focused on being a rookie and staying in the league and people, what they saw of me and how they perceived me. And I was totally focused. But I said the same thing, like, you be careful because, because you just never know. Yep. You never know how it's going to afflict you, because it's going to afflict you, or it could afflict you differently than it does somebody else who doesn't necessarily is adept to becoming or having a problem with alcohol.
Yeah, 100%. What I've seen too is that there's so much emphasis on recovery, right? It's like work versus recovery, like strength and conditioning. So much money and resources poured into it. Alcohol, as we know, is not great for sleep. It's not great for recovery, right? So guys are always going to naturally lean towards something to help with that recovery process. There was a lot of, say, ignorance and misunderstanding of alcohol, what it was doing to the body and nervous system back in the day, right? We self-medicated with it because it was the thing to do.
Yep.
Now there's more awareness and consciousness around it. But at the end of the day, guys are still in physical pain, right? They got pain. They're trying to rid their body of inflammation, as well as some sort of emotional, issues that they're dealing with. They're human beings, right?
Yes.
I mean, dealing with whether it's the game itself or their off ice issues, personal issues, right? So
look at Tom Brady, right?
Something. Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's a big emotional issue, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And he's going through a marital problem.
Yep.
Publicly, and his play looked like it.
Yeah.
And that's a guy that's a completely focused athlete, right?
Yep.
The goat of all goats.
He's a Jedi, yeah, exactly.
He's the Jedi, right? And we just watched him have a human moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So so naturally humans are going to need something, like to your point earlier, to release or express or whatever that lands up being, a management tool. And I think you and I have talked about this before. Your traditional substance abuse model is pure sobriety. I come a little bit more from an alternative perspective, but you're seeing guys utilize cannabis or different cannabis-based products to help manage inflammation, pain, sleep, and in my opinion, it is some sort of drug diversion model or harm reduction model where it's certainly better. Yes, you can abuse cannabis, you can abuse anything.
Sure.
Food, you go down the list of things we can abuse, which is anything around us. But as it comes to, when it pertains to recovery and being a better performer, right? I mean, you're going to sleep better, you're going to recover better, and
sure.
There's an element of harm reduction and drug diversion there. But I just wanted to throw that out there and get your thoughts on the modern, more progressive athlete versus the old school hockey player.
I put this in the book. I said, like, I'm an advocate of cannabis from a standpoint of helping with pain. Mm-hmm. Reduction, especially in pro sports.
Sure.
Like, I mean, when I look back at my career, I actually, and this is another one, I didn't realize how many guys actually used weed even when I played.
Right.
I had an episode, and again, it was in the book in high school that I never did it. Now, I did since later in my years, but I was terrified. I had like something, I thought something was laced in high school. I wrote about it in the book. Yeah. I had a friend actually concur with, said, I remember that. It's the first time I ever did it. I said, I looked at the wall. I said, God, I'll never do this again. and it wasn't until
the old devil's lettuce.
Yeah. Whatever happened there, somebody put a little hot sauce in it. So, I'm glad everyone has a little bit of laugh at the cannabis, right? Because it is like one of those ones where you see somebody just smiling. And you can't walk through any major American city now with it. Every breath you take, it just runs right through your sinuses. But again, in all seriousness, like I tell people, like, if you had an option, if you had no other option between alcohol and weed, and you're an athlete, smoke away, my friend, because the other thing is just not. It's not conducive to what you're trying to do, both as an athlete and a human being.
Yeah, right. And again, the cannabis side of things too, it's no longer just about smoking it, right? I mean, that was like the old school delivery system.
It's edibles now.
It's edibles, tinctures, transdermal patches, topicals. I mean, you're talking about all the delivery systems. So, and different ratios, not to mention like that, because back in the day was you get a bag of weed and that's what you got. You know what I mean? There was no 1-to-1 ratio, THC, CBD, and all this other stuff. So
I had a buddy tell me, he's like, I'll tell you what, man, everything's different now with the way they got weed. Right. Because when I was a kid, I'd go up and get it off a guy, and he'd pull a bag out of his underwear. And he goes, $5. Yeah, right. And he goes, and half of it probably wasn't even weed. Yeah,
right. Stems and seeds and whatever else.
They've really progressed with that. But yeah, I mean, listen, and marijuana's everywhere. They're on billboards all over the world. I tell people, and this is what I do tell parents, watch your kids with those pens, because there's a gateway to that. I tell parents, if you see your kids with the 15-year-old kids with those vape pens of any kind, say something.
100%.
Be absolutely aware of that. It's but for a 40-year-old guy, enjoy your life. Like that's the way I look at it. Be vigilant of it, but I mean, if you're not a drinker and you want to go out, and people have like dinner parties now with these cannabis. I saw something on a YouTube the other day. I was laughing about it, but again, to me, alcohol is the demon of them all, really, because it's just so readily available. It's on every corner.
Yeah, no doubt.